In September 2018, Greta Thunberg, then 15 years old, started her Friday protest outside the Swedish Parliament about the inaction towards climate change. And that has started the global movement known as Youth Strike for Climate. But the big question is, should school kids be allowed to go on strike during school time? And that's something that I will be answering and discussing in this video. Hi guys, how you doing? Jez Sadler here, and I'm out in my little local park, and it's coming towards its last week in February, and it's 18 degrees, and as you can see, the flowers are out. There's some nice crocuses here, and you can see it's a really great sunny day. There's a lot of people around, some of the kids, younger kids in the park and so on, and people just sitting in the sun enjoying themselves. And you can see up here, just people out walking the dogs and things like that. And this is in February. This time last year, this whole place was covered in snow. It's just unbelievable, the change. But has that got anything to do with global warming or climate change? To a degree it has. Look at these lovely crocuses here. Nice bed of crocuses and some daffodils coming through in the background as well. And climate change does have something to do with it, but not completely. I'll get more onto that in a little bit. And I would say that global warming might have something to do with that, but again, not entirely, because we have had record times like this in February before. In some places are going to be 20 degrees Celsius today, so that's going to be what, in the 50s, high 50s, 60s Fahrenheit or whatever. And it's just unbelievable, this kind of weather. This is almost summertime weather, and we haven't even reached spring yet. And as I said before, we have had weather like this before. And to be honest, climate change is changing the weather patterns, because like I said, this time last year we had the beast from the east, as we called it here in UK, and the temperatures were in minus double figures in many places. And not so recent, not that long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, you had temperatures like minus 30 in Chicago. We've had a summer of wildfires, and even now in the Australian and New Zealand summer, the southern hemisphere, you've got wildfires down there. And we've had all the hurricanes and everything like that. And that is all to do with, yes, climate change and also global warming, because let's not forget there are two different things. And that brings me on to another nice little segue into what can we do about it. And we have had, just the other week, thousands, about 15,000 children striking for a day off school against climate change or global warming. And that was all started by Swedish schoolgirl Greta Thunberg, who at the age of 15 started striking every Friday outside of her parliament building in Sweden, and still does it. And it actually started that movement, Youth Strike for Climate. And what really annoyed me, I was watching a programme the other day where it's called The Big Questions on the BBC. Some people were saying, oh, they shouldn't be striking, they should do that in their own time. Really? When is, the best time to strike? Because if you look at union action, if you look at workers who go on strike, when do they do that? Do they do that on their days off? No, they do it at a particular time when it's going to be the most disruptive. And for these particular kids in the UK, it wasn't that disruptive at all, because it was the last day of school before the half-term break, so they wouldn't have been learning anything anyway. However, they were all supporting a fantastic cause, which I'll get more into about and how that's going to affect us in the not so distant future. And I really applaud their actions for taking action, because we need more youth to be involved in their future. So Greta and the movement that she has started is raising an awareness of the inactivity of what's actually happening today. And it's all right for politicians and others to criticise these kids and say, well, they should stay on at school, and learn about these things and then do something about their future when it is their future. But by then it's going to be too late. And let's face it, climate scientists, politicians, and all these people that have these meetings in Davos and in Switzerland and all around the world, they have known about this situation for decades. 30, 40 years or more they've known about climate change, they've known about global warming, the ozone layer, and all that education hasn't done anything, has it, in that respect? Because the ones making those comments today are the ones who were learning about it back then, and they should be taking the action now. And that's what these kids are protesting about. Because these guys are having all these world conferences about climate change, and they're all great, at coming up with ideas about reducing the carbon footprint, how much buy, and so on and so on and so on. But little, if any, action is actually being taken on the global scene. Localized action, yes. I mean, in this country here in the UK, we've reduced the number of plastic bags that we use in our shopping. We're doing a lot of recycling. I know other places in Europe and other countries as well are doing a lot to do with recycling to reduce the amount that's going into landfill and things like that. But it's all localized, because whatever they come up with, whatever idea they come up with, is only done by the few. And you can say, well, that's going to spread to other countries. Well, let's take plastic, for example. In this country here in the UK, we reduced our plastic waste by a massive amount, by not putting it into landfill, but by recycling it. But then the recycle plants got overwhelmed, and where did all that recycled plastic end up? First of all, it got shipped to China. And then they didn't want it anymore, so it got shipped to places like Indonesia. And we have seen the pictures on TV news recently of the situation in places in Indonesia. Whole rivers are clogged with our plastic. And all that stuff is coming back to us on our shores through microbeads and other things as well. The whole waste is being washed up on our shores as it gets washed from these countries and goes around the world and pollutes the whole ocean as well. Is that the action we should be taking? Is that the action that our kids should be learning about to do in their future when it's too late? Now is the time to take action, not in 30, 40 years' time when it's too late. And that was the point also of Sir Richard Attenborough, that we've only got maybe 10, 20, 30 years left. And we ourselves will be very seriously impacted, not only the whole ecological system. So these kids are raising awareness, and as I said earlier on, they shouldn't have to strike in their free time. They raise awareness now by doing it at the most opportune time, just the same as any other worker who strikes. They do it at the time of the best impact. So to be so patronising to these kids about the action that they're taking, about their future, I find is absolutely diabolical. So politicians, climate scientists, and all these ones who are making these wonderful ideas need to wake up, and we need to take action. And it's not just them, all of us need to take action right now if we want to save our planet and have a planet not only for ourselves in 10, 20, 30 years time, but for also our kids who are growing up now and may not have a future to go into.